I've been podcasting for 5 years, and I recently joined a podcast network back in December from a new show, Melanin MVP. I honestly wasn't sure what the value proposition was for joining a podcast network before I joined the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network, but from my experience so far, I can say that it truly has set the standard for what I believe should be the experience that people have when they join a podcast network. For smaller creators, one of the biggest draws, I think, in joining a podcast network is visibility. It helps with the discoverability issue when you're on a network. You can cross-pollinate your audiences a lot easier, doing guest drops and things like that. You also have the ability to potentially do dynamic ads for a new season or a new series that you're doing with your podcast. That would be really helpful for people looking to check out your show. And most importantly, help with generating ad sales and brand partnerships. For most creators, and I include myself in this number, going from freelancer to content creator is a difficult jump. And I think it just requires a different skill set and a different way of thinking about sales and return on investment when you're partnering with brands. That was definitely something that I was looking for with Melanin MVP. I felt like we had a really clear value proposition in a space that isn't super crowded just yet. So we had the advantage of being early and having a unique perspective that myself and the guests on my show are bringing to the table. When I started Honey and Hustle, I did not think about monetizing it at all, and I didn't want to make that mistake again. So I wanted to connect with someone who was already in the sports, athletics, fitness, and recreation space, really leverage their expertise in creating mutually beneficial brand partnerships. And Jason and the crew at the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network have been incredible to work with. Jason puts up with all my random texts and ideas and thoughts, and we've really been able to collaborate in a meaningful way to grow the show. And I think my advice for someone who is looking to join a podcast network is to really understand what you're willing to do and what you're capable of doing to grow the show organically via marketing, especially if you're thinking, I have a great show, I want help with ad sales and brand deals. Yes, creating a quality and consistent show is necessary, but that's also just kind of scratching the surface. You really need to understand how to market your show and who your target audience is and how you can best work with the other shows on that network to grow your show, but also mutually benefit their shows as well. And I think that was something that I really understood from just being a solo creator and working on a branded podcast show, which is that marketing, by and large, is not the responsibility of your guest. It's not the responsibility of the organization you're associated with. It's the responsibility of the host and the creator of the show. And I don't care what they say. I don't care about podcast networks saying we have 10,000 followers on social media, we'll amplify your show. That's only going to bring in a very small number of people. I think it's also important to see what other assets they bring to the table other than just shows. Do they have a dedicated website for their network of shows? Do they have a newsletter for their shows and for their network? And what other partnerships do they already have secured that could also be relevant for your show? And I think that's just been super helpful for me to consider and something that I encourage other people to look into. There's so many creators I see that are signed to a network just to say that they are signed to a network, and they've made not a lot of money being signed to a network. It wouldn't have really been much different than being an indie creator, honestly. Don't be afraid to think about other ways to make money outside of ad sales and brand deals. What are the revenue streams for this project, and how can we diversify them enough that we can meet those needs and meet those demands, but also fulfill them in a way that doesn't overburden us and doesn't stretch us too thin. Melanin MVP is a show for women's sports fans. So if you're an everyday athlete, if you're running, cycling, if you're hitting the gym, or if you're just interested in learning more about the WNBA, college women's basketball, track and field, the new volleyball league, this is the place for you. I'd love for you to check it out. I'll leave the link in the description. We also have a YouTube channel, and I would love to hear what you guys want to hear from us and what your experience has been joining a podcast network. I talk about a lot of things related to podcasting and my journey into building Rootful Media as an original media agency. So follow along if you're into that sort of thing, and I will catch you guys in the next episode.